Hey traders, Raghee here, aka the Queen, and this is a special video that I'm recording for Baby Pippers today because I want to introduce you to something that I've been doing for a really long time, but now I'm kind of diving into it and teaching it really for the first time. And it's not a strategy per se, and it's not an indicator. You already know my trend following strategies. You already have information about my 34 EMA wave and the grab candles that I've developed. So you already have that information. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is something that I've been doing for many, many years. And it's only now that I've realized that there is a process that I can share with everybody, and I think you'll really benefit from it. And that is basically the trade story. Now, if you've been listening to my videos here at Baby Pips, you know that I talk about the individual currency story as it pertains to a particular pair. So we're looking at crude right now, but I can jump on over to US dollar, Canadian dollar, because one of the best individual currency stories is the weakness in the Canadian dollar, and a lot of that is being powered by the weakness in crude. Now, we know that. That's just basic intramarket analysis. But how do you build a trade around this story? A little background here. I'm an English major. I've enjoyed writing since I was a little kid. I was the kid reading books and reading Shakespeare in middle school. I loved that stuff. I don't know what that says about me, but I do know this. I think, I process, and I love story structure. And when I started going over some of my journals from years and years ago, I've been at this for a quarter century, so I'm talking about journals going back over 2 decades, I realized that the way that I structured my trading plan was very much a 3-act structure, very much inspired by Shakespeare. You didn't know he was a trader, did you? So I noticed that so many of my trades were built like a 3-act structure. I had the setup, literally and figuratively, the trigger, and then what happened after the trigger. And then I started to dive more and more into my trades and understand that, we could look at a 5-act structure. I don't care. It's not the structure that I'm concerned about. It's covering each part of the structure. Making sure you're thinking about your character and your settings. Then, think about your typical movie. In fact, in this update here at Baby Pips, I have a link to my favorite non-trading trading books. And one of them is, I don't know who that is. There we go. This is just a site that I found with the 5-act and 3-act structure. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was the fact that I think that understanding movie scripts and reading books like Save the Cat by Blake Snyder will give you a lot of insight into how it is that our trades really are a narrative. And a trade to me, very simply, is this. Let me type this out here for you. A trade is a story, I think it's the big part here, that we can wrap our heads around. And it's really hard to type and talk at the same time. Wrap our head around. Okay? And here's the important part, because a lot of traders stop there. Big mistake. Okay, I understand XYZ, let's go trade it. No, not so fast. Two parts. A trade is a story that we can wrap our head around and then prove, I can't type here this morning, and then prove with price. So I may be perceiving a certain, let's think about different economic releases. Let's think about different central bank actions and statements. Well, I may perceive them one way, but how is the market perceiving it? How is the market, the word we would use, is discounting it? Okay, how is the market discounting it? So these are things where I might have an idea, a story that I think I understand, that I can wrap my head around, but then it's my job to go find out that the way that I'm perceiving it, am I perceiving it properly? Can I prove it with price? That's the important part here. And that takes us this part. So step 1, step 2. It's all, but that's what a trade is ultimately. All right, so with that in mind, think about your favorite movie. Think about the way you're introduced to the character and the character's problems, then how the character could solve the problem, then how the character plans to solve the problem, and then how that plan is then put to work, and then what happens. That over and over and over again is a movie oftentimes a book, and that is also a trade. So I want to kind of introduce you to this concept of a trade really being a story, and stories, depending on how you want to subscribe to this, there's a number of ways you can think about it. One of my favorite ways of looking at it, again, I'm an English major, so I go back to all my English notes, is a very classic 7-point story structure popularized by, say, Dan Wells. He's an author. You can even look at the way Robert McKee, who's a very popular Hollywood kind of guru of story and script, the way he does it. But a very popular structure is the 7-point structure, which works within Shakespeare's 3-act play. So you can look at something like this. And I'm just grabbing some websites after doing a quick Google search. So these are just some websites that I found. So this would be this would be the 3-act structure. And think about what happens at each structure. This is how you establish your, introduce really your character, and you get to really care about the character. Isn't that a pair for us? Isn't that the symbol? Then we go into what are we going to do? What is this character then going to do throughout the movie? For us, are we going to buy or sell a particular story? So what actually gets us interested in this character, our symbol, and whatever the challenge may be, our interest in trading? What's going to force us to action? Well, oftentimes that force to action is going to be the central bank, an economic release. Maybe it's price action, a particular price is reached, whatever that may be. What triggers our trade? Once we have this plan, once we have a plan, what triggers our trade? And then what happens? If you take a look at your typical story structure, it very much mimics a trade. So I'll have more on this. I know for a lot of you, you might be thinking, Raghee or Queen, you've lost it. What are you talking about? Look, when you can build a trade as a story, you will better focus on the relevant points. Think of a good book. Think of a great movie. It stays on point. It stays focused. You have a good trade story, it will stay on focus. You won't be distracted by things that may not have an impact on your character. Okay? So you will build better trades. And, here's the other part too. The Forex market is incredibly overwhelming when you think about the sheer amount of data that uniquely we as Forex traders have to understand. We have to understand commodities. We have to understand, even to a certain degree, the risk environment and equities. It's a lot to have to understand. That's what's so great about Forex. It gives us more to confirm a trade with, but that's also what overwhelms new traders. If you build the story the way I'm going to teach you, and today's just kind of the first introduction to this concept, you will have less overwhelm because you have a clear narrative that you are then doing the most important part, proving with price. Okay, so I hope this little 8-minute discussion was helpful, at least make you think about how you're building your trades, not about a checklist, not about a trading journal, not about just the fundamentals and the price action indicators and technicals, but are you building a narrative that makes sense to you? And your actual checklist, and I do have a trading checklist. I do keep that in my workflowy, and here's my trading plan discussion notes. These are just some of the things that I ask myself for a trade, but that's really one part of what is a 6 or 7 step process of building the story. The actual trading plan checklist is just one part of it. I think a lot of people just think their trading plan checklist is it. That's not true. If you're building a story properly, you get through basically steps 1 through 3. You got your character, what is presented to the character, what's the problem, what's the issue presented to the character. Then you go on to what's going to make you get into the market, and then build your plan. What's that inciting incident, if you will. It's in the story or movie script parlance. And sometimes you will find after the first 3 steps, you're going to stop, because as you're going into the plan, you realize, I really don't have a good character. I really don't have a particular challenge or a particular issue that's interesting me. And then therefore, why am I even pursuing some kind of solution or idea? Forget the trading plan. That's step 4. Some people start at step 4 and they ignore the first 3 steps. I'll get into these steps in the next video, but for now, start thinking about your trades as a story, and I'll see you in the next update.